For our next lesson, our essential question is, how did trade with the Arab world influence life in West Africa? And we're really looking at the influence of life in West Africa because of the influence of Islam. So in the 600, Islam spread quickly through the Middle East and North Africa through conquest, trade, through Mecca, etc. In the 700s, the trans-Saharan trade brought Muslim merchants and traders to West Africa, specifically the Kingdom of Ghana. By 1312, the king of the Mali Empire, Mansa Musa, became the first West African ruler to practice Islam devoutly. So Muslims also introduced the camel into West Africa, and then here we see all of the trade. So in this lesson, we're really going to see a lot of connections between our last lesson for Unit 4 and our Unit 3, Islam. And this is an image that represents Mansa Musa's Hajj to Mecca as a Muslim king, and as a Muslim, he is required to go to Islam at least one time in his life. So the indigenous religious practices. In West Africa, people prayed to spirits of their ancestors for help and guidance. They believe that there are spirits in nature, like in the wind, trees, ocean, sun, etc. And they believe that gods have flaws and emotions, much like humans. So this to me reminds me a lot of like the Greek gods, right? Who get angry and jealous and mad. And then just like the Greeks, right? There was a goddess of love and a god of the ocean, and just different gods for different things in nature. These are some of the West African masks, right? And then this is where we see maybe some representations of their gods and traditions. We could see a lot of like music being involved, and another type of spirit worship. So some changes that happened to the religious practices. Once Islam arrived, right, and we said that this whole section in North Africa is also considered part of the Middle East, right? And even till today, this northern green part of West Africa is predominantly Muslim. Okay, Africans synthesized Muslim and indigenous customs, which means that they were blended together. Okay, they prayed to Allah 5 times a day, but they also continued to pray to the spirits of their ancestors. They started celebrating Ramadan and women wearing hijab, going on pilgrimage to Mecca, etc. But we will see some things that were adopted to match their culture too. So, for example, like the really colorful clothing, we saw in our first lesson that in Africa is very vibrant colors. And then we also see them wearing white, which is very common for religious events in Islam. Changes in government and law. The leaders changed into sultans who took control over bigger areas instead of leaders ruling smaller kingdoms. So this would be like Jasmine's dad from Aladdin, right? He was a sultan. Succession also changed. It went from matrilineal to patrilineal. So matrilineal means that the next ruler is going to be chosen from the woman's side of the family, right? And it changed to patrilineal, which is something that we're more familiar with today. The next ruler is going to be picked from the dad's side of the family. Much of North and West Africa began using written Sharia law. So remember, these are laws that are based on the Quran and other writings. And so countries started using those as the land the law of the land, right? And this is why we see the symbol of Islam in different flags of countries. So here we go, Sharia law. Changes in language. They used Arabic for religion, learning, trade, and government records, but they continue to speak their indigenous languages. So think of them as being bilingual, right? So they learned the Arabic alphabet, and they started to write in Arabic and go to school, and so that they could learn how to read and write, and they can read the Quran, right? And then rulers kept records, but on the daily, people would still speak their languages. So Arabic became a language that connected everybody together. Changes in education, right? In Africa, there was many mosques, libraries, and universities that were built to study Islam and the profession of trade, focusing on reading and writing. So remember that anytime that they built a mosque, there would be like a school next to it. So this would be an example of a mosque built in West Africa, and we see that they're using different materials, which is materials that would be found in that environment or that area. They continue to use the traditional mud brick architecture, right? So these are not going to look the same as they do in Mecca, right? Because in Africa, there's like different landscape. The city of Timbuktu became a center for learning and trade in the Mali Empire. Right, so here we see another example of the traditional mud brick architecture that we use. And these buildings are still in existence today, so they can last a really long time. This is the Sankore Mosque, which is part of the Sankore University, and it's located in Timbuktu, Mali. Right, Timbuktu became a very important city for learning and trade, and I hope we have a chance to talk about it a little bit more because it's actually very interesting. And that's it. That's it for the changes and influence of life in West Africa after the Muslims came in. And these changes were caused mostly by Islam being a new religion introduced into the area.